You got a basketball in your hand.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Magic Johnson.
Right.
I loved watching Magic Johnson play basketball because I felt like he made every player on his team better. Nothing better on a basketball floor for me than making somebody else better. If you have the power to do that, you'll be loved by your teammates and fans.
Welcome back to this next installment of the Insights of Everything. And we're very excited today because this is our first offshoot location, and we're actually in the not so sweaty, not so wet changing rooms of the Leicester Riders with their head coach, Rob Paternostro. Thanks,
Hello.
Rob. Thank you for coming. And this is quite exciting, right? Because I'm seeing all sorts of things around this changing room that if we had a bag, I'd put it all in and run off, but I'm not going to, right? Rob, I want to start with a couple of questions, if you don't mind, that hopefully that you know the answer to, right?
Okay.
Just to kick off, right? So do you know the year the Leicester Riders was formed?
1967.
Correct. I'll give you that one. Well done. And what year did the Riders win their first BBL League title?
League title?
Yeah, that's what I'm going with this.
2013.
Correct. I'm glad you remember because that was with you, right?
Yeah.
And how many titles have we won consecutively? Well, not consecutive, sorry, in total.
When you talk about league titles, or you
Yeah.
talking about trophies?
No, league titles.
Is it 6?
I've got 19 here, so maybe it's all. Maybe it's
all
everything.
trophies. 19.
Right.
The club has won 19 trophies altogether.
Perfect.
Yes.
So
Yes,
the trophy room looks pretty good.
Yeah.
If you get to keep them, I'm sure you get to keep a copy.
There's some replicas
Right.
around.
Cool. What was the Riders originally called?
Loughborough All-Stars.
Correct. Are you looking at my piece of paper?
No.
Here? No.
I've been here a long time.
Yeah, you have, right. And last one, but you should get this one. When was the BBL formed?
That's a tough question. 94, 95?
I've got 1987.
Oh,
down
I'm
here.
off.
Right,
Sorry,
okay.
a little before my time.
A little bit, exactly. 4 out of 5. We'll give you that one.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
fine.
Well,
Cool.
thank you.
No worries. So I wanted to just go through maybe sort of a bit of your growing up period, your early career, and then I really want to get into a bit of the nitty-gritty about Riders, because I think a lot of our viewers will be interested about basketball, where it's going to go, what your thoughts on it, what's happened in the most recent years, I think, and potentially where it could go, because obviously everyone will benchmark against the NBA or the Eastern European leagues and see where can this BBL tournament and league go to, right? And there's a plethora of reasons why, and how, money is one of them, right, et cetera, et cetera. So humor me for the first part of this, right?
Okay.
And make sure I get some of these other facts right. So I understand that you grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Yes.
Right?
The Brass City.
The Brass City, right.
Yeah.
That's true. And coming from an Italian background, and we touched this earlier, where did basketball come from though?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my dad was really into sports. He's a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my earliest memories of sport was going with my father to his baseball game and being able to be there in the warm-ups, out on the field with the team, with the guys. And then more importantly, being in the dugout on the bench, rooting and being into every pitch with the team. And I think that was my first sporting experience, and it really shaped what I wanted to do in my life. Being a part of the team, being around the guys, being high when you win, low when you lose, all the emotions that come with it. I was addicted at an early age through my dad's sporting endeavors.
Okay. And so you start off with baseball. Who was the team?
My team's the Yankees.
Right.
Still the Yankees to this day.
Still the Yankees.
Oh yeah, that was it's almost like a religion in my family.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the older ones have passed away, but growing up, whatever house you went to in the summer, baseball's on every day, right? They play 162 games. So somebody had the Yankee game either on the radio, on the TV, and it was a huge, huge part of my life growing up.
Yeah. So when's your first memory of bouncing a ball or going to the first
Yeah, I think
game?
early on, my cousin across the street had a basketball hoop, and I think 4, 5, 6 years old, we're out there, kind of just messing around, really. But my first real basketball experience was my dad, said to me, "If you want to play basketball in Waterbury," he said, "we're not going to put you in the suburban leagues. We're going to put you into the inner city." And he took me down to the boys' club. Didn't know anybody there. Pretty much dropped me off there in the boys club of Waterbury. When you look back on it, the history of the basketball there and the players that have come out of there, it was probably the best decision my dad ever made for basketball. So I really grew up playing against the best competition all the time. And I think that, it was fun, but it was also challenging, which was great. But for me, I didn't make a decision on which sport I was going to play till I was 17 years old. I played 3 sports. I played soccer, I played baseball, and I played basketball. So I had to make the decision at 17 years old. And that's when I, made the decision on basketball.
And why did you, was that your best sport you thought you could make a career of, or you just enjoyed it more?
Well, it wasn't so much about the career. I think that in America, I think what you're striving for as a student athlete, especially in high school, is to get a scholarship to university. University, very expensive in the U.S.
Yeah.
If you're able to get a scholarship, it's such a huge load off you financially. And I think that's what I was looking for. In basketball, I had plenty of scholarship offers that I could have went to school for free. I wouldn't have to spend any money at all, eat everything. Whereas baseball, because of the nature of the sport and how many players they have on a team, they split them up a lot. So you're paying partial here, partial there. So that made the decision for me. And I have talked to my father recently about it, and we talk all the time about it. Baseball probably was my best sport, especially with the size. I'm a small player for basketball. I'm probably the smallest on every team. So there are some unknowns whether or not I picked the right. But to be honest with you, it's given me such a great life in sport, basketball, that I'm happy I went down that road.
Okay, so with that mindset, if your son at 17, if you have a son, if you had a son at 17, or your daughter, what would you advise them at that point to do, given your experience?
Which sport to play?
Well, yeah, if they had the same decision to make as you.
Yeah, I think, if it was to be able to go to school for free, I think I'd probably go along with that one. But
saves you a few quid,
yeah,
right?
but I think that, you got to go with what your heart tells you. And at that point, I love basketball. I think the environment and the atmosphere I was addicted to. I think that competition and that intensity, it's hard to find in other sports, the way the fans are on top of you and everything. So, yeah, I picked that because it was academics and it was school and everything, but I also love the game. So I think it's important to allow your kids to do what they love, within reason.
Yeah, yeah. So does that mean that took you to New Hampshire College at that point, right?
Yeah.
So they offered you a scholarship?
They did.
Right.
They did. They offered me a scholarship, and what was interesting about that school was that one of my father's friends' brothers, Italian, Carmen Giampetruzzi, good friend of mine. He was already gone to that school. Right. He's from Waterbury, went to my high school, Holy Cross. We used to go watch him play for that school. So I had a connection there through him. And to be honest with you, the first time I visited, I had such a good time. I do blame Kevin McCarthy, who was a friend of mine. He was a senior at the time, who certainly showed me a good time on the recruiting visit.
He did his job.
Enough to where I committed,
he did his job.
The next day. But it was a wonderful place to go to school. Right. New Hampshire's a great state. I had a legendary coach, Stan Spiro, who I still talk to today. It was an awesome time, and we won. And I think whenever I tell anybody about my college experience, the first thing I say is we were 107-24. So that's great because you can stick your chest out and say I'm one. But when you're winning in college, everybody's happy. Yeah. Everybody says hello to you.
Yeah. The whole town.
Everybody's in good frame of mind.
Yeah.
So I went through that whole 4 years with pretty much never losing many games. And it was a wonderful experience because of that.
So just go back a second. So you've gone over the road. You've gone to see your friend who's got a basketball hoop. You got a basketball in your hand.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Magic Johnson.
Right.
That's my idol.
Yeah.
My dog's name was Magic.
Right.
I loved watching Magic Johnson play basketball because I felt like he made every player on his team better. And I think that's the way I wanted to be growing up, was by watching him. I think it's important for young kids to watch their favorite players and watch what they do in sports. And I was able to watch him do that. And I think that he had such a major influence on how I played the game and what I loved about the game.
So not a Jordan man.
No, Jordan came after. Again, I started watching sports when he was in college and university. So, I was a Magic guy. I love Jordan too. I mean, he was amazing, but always a Magic guy.
And did you end up playing a similar position?
Yeah, I played point guard.
Fine.
Magic was a point guard. He was 6'9". I was 5'9" and 3/4 on a good day. Hey. And so it was a little different, but he did a lot of things that I love to do on a basketball floor. And there's nothing better on a basketball floor for me than making somebody else better out there. If you have the power to do that, you'll be loved by your teammates and fans alike.
I think that's quite an interesting point you make. 'Cause I think that actually translates to other sports. So I played football, soccer growing up, and scoring a goal was great. But actually, assisting, it feels like the assists are just as important these days, even in other sports, right?
Oh yeah, I think that I think as we go on here in sport and basketball, you could see team play is so important. Moving the ball, passing the ball, keeping everybody involved. So you want those types of players that aren't just thinking about the glory, getting the basket or the goal, but that are willing to make the extra pass for the betterment of the team.
So, so I can see here that so you didn't win a lot when you were at New Hampshire, right? I think kept 3 straight NECC league tournament titles. Is that right? And,
sure.
What was your most favourite though over that span of sort of 4 or 5 years you were there for? What for you would have been your most precious?
Yeah, there was a couple. I have to be honest. There was one my freshman year where we were down by 20 points with 8 minutes to go, and I scored 28 points in the last 8 minutes for us to win an NCAA tournament game as a freshman. I think that was one of the greatest experiences of my life. We had a great time after too. It was a fun night. I still remember the night after. But another one was, I think I stole the ball in the last second to win the conference championship. I stole the ball at half court. We were down by 2. And I made a 3 at the buzzer to win the conference championship. So it's hard to beat that. Yeah, so that's like the same type of play I was practicing in my driveway when I was 12 years old. Of course, yeah. And it was there in front of me in slow motion. So that was, something I'll never forget. But to be honest with you, I've had so many great relationships from that program that I was a part of up there. So many lifelong friends and so many people that I can really count on. There's a brotherhood there. And I think that, you make a lot of baskets, you make great passes, you do whatever, you win trophies. But when you have that brotherhood and that family that you have up there, that goes a long way and goes a long way in your future.
Have you been back?
Yes, I have been back. It has been a little while. Obviously, we play the same time they play, so it's hard to get there. But I have been back about 5-6 years ago. I was back. Still have plenty of friends there. I lived there for a while, so I have plenty of friends there. And I stay in contact all the time.
So I think as a English Brit guy, our sporting structure is different to America. So you go to college, you have all this success, and then what next, right? Now, I think at that point, was that the point where I know you were in the NBA draft, I believe, and you were undrafted at that point. And I'd love to know what that experience was. But what was that just in the next stage, or did you do something after college?
Yeah, no, I literally went from college my senior year. Once I graduated, I was actually, working with I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to work in TV. So I actually was working with an ABC affiliate in New Hampshire, part of my internship. So I was looking at avenues to go into broadcasting. But when I got my first agent after my senior year, he said there was going to be a lot of opportunities for me overseas. I did play in a minor league USBL it was called. It's not there now, in May, right after I got out of college, with former NBA players and stuff. But it was finding the right agent and then, hoping you can find something overseas.
And once you made that transition, what was the biggest, rather than the cultural difference from a basketball perspective? How different was that basketball compared to what you've been playing?
Yeah, it was really different. I think, you're going back to a time when I first left for my first overseas job in 95, where the internet wasn't what it was today at all. Like, you really didn't have a lot of capabilities there. So you're landing in a country where you don't know anybody. You're going to a practice where you've never really seen these guys play. You don't know anything about them. And it was a real challenge. You're leaving college basketball. And I think in college basketball, university, you're playing with your friends. You're hanging out every night with the same guys. When you get to the pros, depending on what team you're on, everybody goes in their own direction. So it was pretty lonely early on for me. And the first few years that I was playing, bouncing around, really difficult to get settled because it was totally different than what I was used to, both on the court and off the court. The on the court stuff was different too, the terminology, what they did. So I had to learn a lot. And I think the most important thing I'll say in those first early years when it was a challenge was I learned a lot about myself. I think being in where I come from, being away from home and away from the security blanket and everything really taught me a lot and, set me up for my future. But it was tough.
Yeah. And how many years did you spend sort of traveling around Europe playing?
Yeah, I think I started in 95 and I finished up as a player 2007, 2008. So I did move around a lot, various countries. played a lot of places. I did take 1 year off, though. From 99 to 2000, I worked at ESPN in Connecticut, which was close to my family home.
Mhm.
And I worked on the NBA show in production. So that was an incredible experience. I was
can
still
imagine.
thinking of broadcasting, thinking of TV. But then after a year, I got a phone call to come back to play in Europe. And I thought to myself, hey, let's give it one more shot.
I'm not quite ready to.
Yeah, because I had a back injury.
Right.
My back was feeling better. So I thought to myself, let's go for it again. And I landed in, next thing I know, I landed in Birmingham, England.
Birmingham Bullets.
Birmingham Bullets.
Yeah. Was that the first time you've been to the UK?
First time I've been to the UK, which
you
shocked
landed
me.
in Birmingham.
Yeah, I didn't really know much about Birmingham. When they first told me about it, I didn't really know any. I never really heard of it that much. And to be honest with you, in America back then, we knew about the royal family and potentially punk rock. I mean, I think everybody had the spiky hairdo. And is that what it's like over there? That's what people would be asking me. People would always say, how's London? I go, I don't know. Like, I live in Birmingham. But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. But as someone who had been playing in countries that didn't have the English speaking as the main language, to go somewhere where you could communicate was it was awesome when I first got there. And I loved Birmingham. And it was a wonderful time.
And I can imagine the years before of understanding about yourself, etc., made it even easier, right? Yeah,
I mean, I had experience of being away. I had experience looking after myself, but I had a blast in Birmingham. What a city that was.
Yeah.
To be young, 27, 28 years old, with a bunch of guys playing hoops, having a good time. Yeah, it was a great group of guys that I was around, and it was a great city to be in.
So, given your age at that point, did you ever think about, you probably didn't, but what the BBL was like back then? Did you ever think about, well, this could be big, I'm just playing him, I'm just having a good time. Could this be something I want to do in the future?
I think when I got to the BBL, it was still at one of its highest points. In 2000, 99, 2000, 2001, I still had the really good television contracts with Sky. And business was pretty good. It was a lot of high level players playing in a lot of nice places. I think it took a major dip, say around 2005 to say 2008, and then it started to build back up. So I kind of have seen it, go be at a high level, go down a little bit, and then climb its way back up. And I feel like as we sit here now, it's probably in one of the best places it's ever been.
Yeah, and we'll get to that bit. Sure. I think that's one of the most exciting parts of this, and especially everything Brandy being involved as a sponsor. It has a sort of a personal element to it, because we're excited to see what next season is going to look like. So you sort of make that transition from stop playing to play. Now, was it at Birmingham Bullets you were a player coach, or at one point you were a player coach, right?
No, I wasn't. I think that was what will happen was, and again, it says that sometimes online it will say things like that, and they'll say, no, that's not true.
Steph's going to get fired.
That's okay. No, she's the best. Come on. But honestly, what had happened with me is I was going to be a teacher.
Okay.
So I actually was training to be a teacher, and I had a full timetable. In my last year as a player, I was doing that on the side because I knew that my career was ending. So I was playing for the Birmingham Panthers at that point. And this Holly Lodge High School, Smethwick. Shout out to Holly Lodge High School in Smethwick. Met some of the coolest people there working. Awesome place. They had me right in there as a PE teacher. Like, there was no, they gave me a form
and a whistle.
They gave me I was right away, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was playing at the same time. When that first year ended as a teacher, I got a phone call from the Riders.
Right.
And they asked me if I would be interested in interviewing for the head coaching position, which they wanted it to be a player coach situation.
Right. Okay.
So maybe that's where you got your facts mixed up.
We're not firing Steph now.
Yeah. So anyways, I never wanted to be a player coach.
Right.
Never. I just never thought I had that type of personality that was able to combine it. I had to be all in one way or the other. But I didn't want to give up my teaching job because it was a nice gig. I liked it. So what I was able to do that year is we practiced at night here in Leicester. So I was able to work as a teacher, full timetable, full everything. Day ends, drive up to Leicester for training every night. Okay. So I combined the two the first year so I could really get to know what this coaching stuff was all about and see if I wanted to do it going forward.
And what did you think of the Riders at that point?
Yeah, it's a good question. That was important because when I played for them 2 years before, so I did play 1 year in Leicester. And what I found was that they had such great fan support. I thought that the fans and the volunteers and the people around the club were so genuine and really would do anything to make it work.
So I've got a good question. Did you play at the old Granby Halls?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I played at De Montfort University.
Right. Okay,
which I actually coached in there for a while until we got into the Morningside Arena. So yeah, I think with the Riders, I always looked at it as a sleeping giant because when you look at the record of the past, it was poor a lot. They weren't the best team. Mm-hmm. And I thought that this would be a place with the passionate fan support and the city of Leicester, which I find to be fantastic with its support of sport. Mm-hmm. I thought that there would be a great place to really take this to another level. Mm-hmm. So I was really enthusiastic about taking the job. And I thought that if we could do what we wanted to do and got the players we wanted to get in here, we can get this thing rolling.
So you rock in day one as Riders head coach. What was the first decision you made?
To not hang out with the players.
Okay. And why was that?
Well, because I had a few guys on the team that I was teammates for in the past. So I think that was very important for me to make sure to understand that you have to distance yourself now, even though your friends, a couple of guys were really good friends with me that I had spent, a lot of time with doing a variety of things. And as the head coach, you had to now separate yourself. I wanted to still have great relationships with everybody, of course, but I had to separate myself. And then the other thing was from day one, I wanted to be honest. I never, ever wanted any player to think that I was deceitful in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And I think that was really important to me because I knew what it was like to play for different types of coaches. And I wanted to make sure that I was this honest, straight shooter that when a player, asked me a question, I would give him a true answer.
Do you think that's part of why you've been here for this is your 16th year? Do you think that's part of your longevity of that honest nature?
Maybe. I hope so. I think the major part of me being here for 16 years is the great players we've had. I'll be honest with you. They've done so many great things, but I think so. I think my relationship with players has always been important. I was talking to some coach the other day and I was talking about how important that side of it is. You can draw up any play you want. You can have the best practice drills in the world out there, but if your relationship with the team and your relationship with individuals is poor, then, they're not going to execute it the right way. And I think that was, important for me. And as important for me in these 16 seasons, starting the 16th now, is to do everything I can to have a really good relationship with my players.
Well, I think that transcends all sports, right? All the top coaches have always been good man managers and sort of, They use the phrase these days, sort of, they've got the dressing room, so to speak. And I don't mean that because we're sat in a dressing room, but if you lose the dressing room, that's often the sort of the catalyst for a slight downfall. But
yeah, it's important. I think it's important to understand that concept right away, as a coach. And I think I was a player before I was a coach. I never thought of myself as a potential coach. I was always just a player, right? I was that. And even now to this day, I still wake up some mornings and think I'm still playing. Then I realize, no, you're not. But I do have that mentality still. And I think my guys that play for me know that I've been a part of what they've been a part of and know I understand how the body feels after a few hard practices. So, that balance I think was attainable for me right away because I had that experience on the playing side.
And do you also think that's been part of the success? The reasons why Rise have been so successful in the most recent years, again, is the combination of all those elements. And the sort of, you've been here for 16 years, you're like that, the pillar, the rock, right? And if you can apply that, we were talking off camera about the length of time often players are here for. So it feels like they are, however long they're here for, they have added value because of the experience that you've had here, right? As well as all the additional outside stuff they can do while they're here. Yeah,
I think my experience certainly helps. I think that this league is important to really know the ins and outs of it. So that's key. But yeah, I think that the fact that I was a player, I think has certainly helped me in my coaching decisions. Not to say that you have to be a player to be a good coach. I'm not saying that. But you certainly look at things a little bit differently. And you certainly, can be sympathetic at times to the guys because you understand what they're going through.
Understand. Right. So let's talk about the new season, right?
Okay.
A little bit more about the Riders today. So again, the leagues that we've got around the world now, where's the biggest competition for the UK?
Well, that's a great question. I think, going forward, if you wanted to measure yourself up against European leagues, you'd go right to the Spanish league, the Greek league, the Italian league, the French league. Those are heavy hitters. German league, they've separated themselves. The Far East, China and Japan are making moves too. I mean, there's crazy about basketball over there as well. But I think, an attainable goal for us is to separate ourselves at some point from, say, Sweden, Finland. Those leagues are solid leagues, good leagues, Portugal, those type of. So I think we have to make them, before we start thinking about the heaviest of hitters, we have to kind of separate ourselves from some of these other leagues. And I think, talking to the agents that I've been talking to for 16 seasons in the summer when we recruit players, it's a great vibe for the British Basketball League right now. I think a lot of people see the value in it, and a lot of agents who are really the movers and shakers in this business really want their players there because they could see all the positive growth and the potential to come from it.
Well, I think that the BBL has some quite exciting plans with the new CEO, if I'm correct, right? And obviously the London Lions from last year and the money. One of my big questions around that one is, I mean, I remember as a kid when the NFL came to London with the London Monarchs, and then you had the Edinburgh team, and it sort of came and went within 2 years because it was unsustainable for whatever reason. Now that's different now, and obviously the NFL's over here, and they have 2 or 3 games at Wembley or whatever, and the fans, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering do we think the influx of money on a team is sustainable for the whole of the league?
Well, London.
Yeah. Is it just okay, I'm going to come for 2-3 years, brilliant, but it's all disappears again? Because ultimately, if the competition level doesn't increase across the board, it could be seen as a non-sustainable impact. What do you think?
Listen, I definitely am not someone that is in any of these meetings with the league about what's going on. I'm a basketball guy right now. I mean, if someone wanted to change that, I feel like I could get involved. But right now, I'm a basketball coach, and I'm paying attention to basketball. But what I do see is that with the London Lions emergence, playing in Euro Cup, which is a top European league, and doing very well, and bringing some heavy hitters over here, former NBA players that are playing. With their involvement, you certainly have piqued the interest of the rest of Europe, of the movers and shakers in the game, that this league is headed in the right direction. Now, no one was anywhere near them last year as far as money goes. Everybody knows that. It was just incredible, the difference. But I do feel like it will raise the game of the other teams to know that they have to, bring their A game to even compete. I think if you looked at us last year, we lost to them 6 times. I think we only had 5 other losses in the league to other teams, and we couldn't get over the hump against them. Did we play them tough in the final? Did we play them tough in the cup final? We did. We're in the fourth quarter, and we got a chance to win those games, which is what we wanted. We didn't do it, though. But, they certainly have pushed us to raise our level on the court and off the court as well. I think off the court is another area where, we got to try to keep up. Obviously, you're not going to get to that level, but got to keep growing, keep evolving, and, hopefully we can translate that to wins on the court.
Do you think that this league benefits from – so, for example, the England ladies, right? They won the Euros last year. They're now in the World Cup final, and we can see the impact that necessarily had on the nation from a girls' sporting perspective. Yeah. So do you think what basketball here is quite missing is superstars or just coverage? Or, there's probably 100 different ways, but do you think it misses those superstars? Yeah,
I think, the only way you can have superstars is if they're covered like superstars. And I think, you asked about the coverage, and I think it's been better and it keeps getting better. But I think we still can take it up another level. I think there are times when you open a newspaper. Does anybody do that anymore? I still do. But when I do, I don't even sometimes see the British Basketball League in that paper. So I think there are, some old time people in the sports media that haven't allowed us in. But I'm hoping that the new wave of media will be able to allow us in. And I think that when you look at it, when I first arrived in this country in 2000, in order to watch an NBA game, you either had to pop a video cassette into a VCR, and you had to hit the timer to win. It's tough. And remember how hard was that? And then you had to, record it, or you had to stay up all night. You never had an opportunity to watch your favorite player or a great player play and do things. Now, the generation that's coming forward in the last 23 plus years has been able to see that, does have access to that. So I think basketball is really benefiting from that, especially in this country, because the participation levels, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the participation levels are high as a team sport. And I think all you have to do is drive around. You see people with basketballs in their hand way more than before, and way more jerseys and gear on than before. So I do think that the emergence of the internet and the ability to watch whatever you want has helped us and taken us to a new level. But now we need to be led into the mainstream. And I think that's what everyone's trying to do. And it's a challenge. But I do think that sooner or later, we will break that door down, because it's going to be hard to stop us.
I think so. If everyone comes to a game, they'll soon understand that it's the energy there, the excitement there. It's all court, full court action.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
For 40 minutes, right?
Yeah, it's fast. And I think it's, a family type sport as well. You feel comfortable with the family. We all know that. I mean, you look at the final, we played at the O2 Arena. I think 16,000 in there for the final, watching a basketball game on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in London when there's plenty of other things to do, right? 16,000 there. We played January in Birmingham, double digit, 12,000, 13,000 cells. So the appetite is there. And I think, it's coming. And like I said, we will break the door down, but hopefully they'll let us in so we don't have to break it down.
Sure. Well, I remember also darts. You take darts as a sport, darts coverage increased with Phil Power Taylor, for example. Suddenly it was that sort of Sunday afternoon in a smoky sort of pub somewhere, people playing, and then suddenly they get a few superstars around, and look at it now.
A few beers.
Yeah, a few beers.
Few superstars, and we're off and running.
Right, and the coverage comes with it.
Sure.
Right? It's the same with the female football, the coverage now that we have.
And that's what we want to try to break through. Yeah. And I think we are, again, we're on Sky once a week last year. I think I haven't seen the plans this year, but I hear they're exciting. So hopefully each year we can add a layer to that. And continue to be seen by as many people as possible. Yeah, and even I think from our perspective, what you can do as a riders team to put the riders out there and the BBL league, because you're not, I don't know about the contracts, etc., but you'll probably be able to video these games. You could probably showcase on your own social media channels, etc. So I think there is an accountability or responsibility for the teams to also do as much as they can, not just in the community because you're doing it anyway, but also to broadcast the power of what it can be. And I think last year, it was you could watch if you were sitting in Leicester, England, or you were sitting in Naples, Florida, you could watch every game live on YouTube last year. So that was great too. Everybody can watch it. I hear they're got some real big production plans for that again this season. So yeah, it's out there. You can find it. It's just maybe about raising the awareness to another level.
Okay, so let's talk about the Riders team. So how many did you lose in the summer?
I don't have the exact number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 5, 6, something like that.
So have you replaced all 6?
Yeah, we've brought in a lot of new players. We'll have 12 players on our roster this year. We have 7 new guys. So yeah, a high turnover this year.
And is 12 the maximum number?
Yeah, 12 is the number you have on your squad. Right. You could sit on the bench and dress. So we have the 12 now. A couple of young players mixed in there, but 2 talented young players as well. So we have a pretty deep team, and we're looking forward to get going.
Expectation? Your expectation?
My expectation is to be better at the end. I say the same thing every year, and that's what I expect. I expect us to, be much better at the end of the season. And I think that's been the goal for me from the beginning. I never mentioned trophies to the team. I never mentioned how high we're going to finish or what. But I do mention that we have to be a team that people see later in the year that we're way better. And I think it's important that we get the work in to do that. And if you strive for that, I think, the wins and the trophies and the accolades will come. But I don't want to be a team that peaks too early. My goal is to make sure that there's a lot more left in the tank once we hit the turn of the new year, heading into the final, few months of the season.
And the question, out of those 12, how many are from the UK?
I think we have 1, 2, 3.
And do you see an emergence?
I want to
of
see
UK
3.
players?
I want to say just 3 this year.
Okay. Is that more or less than usual?
I think it's a little less.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you seeing a growth of UK based players playing in this league?
Yeah, I did last season. I think, the import rules are a little changed now. So you're allowed to have more imports. So it has affected the British player a bit. But I do see players, I do see it harder for British players to get into the league. So I do see higher level players that are in the league. But yeah, I think that, the British player, it continues to improve and continues to, love the game. And you see that. And these, it's so easy for us in the US to play basketball. We kind of take it for granted. But the guys that end up playing here and working on their game and doing what they need to do, they have to work to do it. So you have a lot of respect for how they've put the work in and to be where they are. But British is another thing. And GB, we'll talk about that GB job some other time, but that's eventually coming forward a sleeping giant as well, where I feel like, national team, if they can get their stuff right off the court, I think the players that are coming through in the next 5-10 years, it could be a whole different type team.
Yeah, there's another down memory lane with the old dream team. 92, whatever it was, the dream
Barcelona,
team. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. I remember that quite vividly, actually.
Yeah.
Now, I've got one quick question towards the end, and I don't know whether this is a rule. Now, I've watched 3 games here at the Riders. You've won all 3.
Okay.
But I've never seen one dunk. Can you dunk in this league?
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised you haven't.
I've not seen any.
Wow. Yeah,
so much so I thought it must be a rule.
No, absolutely not. And we were out there with some of our new guys today, and you'll see a lot more dunks next year. I think that I'm not exactly sure. We don't really track dunks, but I thought we had a fair amount last year. But
it's just one of those. It's one of it's one of those things that excites people when they see the opportunity.
It's exciting, and I think it's the type of players we're trying to bring in, players we brought in this year. We'll certainly have you off your feet with that.
Okay, good. Well, look, I'm excited. So, Rob, really appreciate your time here in the mecca that is the Riders locker room. It's a little bit hot now, but that's fine. But I really appreciate your time. I wish you all the best for the season, and I hope we actually get a win against the London Lions. Okay. I shouldn't really say that, but let's say that.
We're going to do our best. We're going to do our best. Thank you for your support.
Pleasure.
You guys have been great, and look forward to catching up again later.
Brilliant. Cool. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.